Hey there, before we get into the video, we're running a contest on Instagram where you can win a pre-built commander deck based on one of the previous videos on the channel. All you need to do is like the page, like the contest picture, tag 3 of your friends, and comment your favorite color combination. We're running this contest until September 13th, so don't hesitate and get your entry in before then. Now, on with the video. Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new episode of Brewing with 50 bucks. It's here where we take your favorite commanders and we slap on a $50 deck price to make a brand new functional commander deck for you. My name is Stefan and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm a content creator here on YouTube making Magic the Gathering content, and I would appreciate it if you gave my socials a follow on the bottom left hand side of your screen right now. Obviously you know the commander for today's brew, so I'm not gonna waste too much of your time. So let's get right into it. Today's brew is on Kresh the Bloodbraided. He's my very first commander I've ever built in a EDH format, and since my actual birthday is at the tail end of this long weekend here in Canada, I decided to challenge myself with an older commander to work with for this week. And this coincides very well with last week's video about the old commanders competing against new commanders. You can find that on the top right side of your screen right now. And primarily I wanted to do something old school for my birthday. So let's bump the synth wave and let's get started. All right, so Kresh is a 3/3 for 2 black, red, and green. A legendary human warrior. Whenever another creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may put X +1/+1 counters on Kresh the Bloodbraided, where X is the creature's power. So ultimately, this is a very stompy commander. You're basically wanting a giant, powerful commander to get in, bludgeon through, and get some damage into your opponents. A lot of these strategies behind this is very much akin to either destroying your opponent's creatures or sacrificing your own creatures. Ultimately, their inevitable demise will give Kresh much more power to get into your opponents. And with this deck, we slap on a $50 budget, which includes the price of the commander, which will exclude the price of the basic lands, and we also offer a $5 leniency overage. With this, the deck can be built for $50, but most people can afford an extra $5 on top of it, so that's why we offer the leniency. As you can see on the screen right now, you can find the deck list in the show notes down below. And don't forget, before we get started, to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it amongst your friends, and hit that bell icon. We're going to keep it simple this week. We're going to be going very much straight into it. We're going to start off with our creatures. Basically, this is the most important part of any Kresh deck. Your creatures either being on the battlefield or in your graveyard will benefit Kresh for the long run. We're going to start off very strongly with anger, because every angry human warrior deck needs a bit of anger in it. And the reason we're adding anger in this case is that all your creatures have haste. It's a haste outlet, and mostly you want this in your graveyard so that Kresh could not only get those extra counters, but haste goes a long way, especially in a Kresh deck. Next is Arbor Elf, is a mana dork, allowing you to get some extra mana on the field. Brawn is another one like Anger, where you want this creature in the graveyard. However, with this, all your creatures gain Trample as well. Burnish Heart is extra ramp for you, basically allowing you to sacrifice the Burnish Heart to get you 2 extra basic lands onto the field tapped. However, it does also allow you to sacrifice itself, and Kresh can benefit from the extra sacrifice. Demon's Disciple is a fantastic card in this, allowing you to not only sacrifice your one creature, but having everybody sacrifice a creature. That way you're pumping up Kresh by minimum 3 with Demon's Disciple's power, and upwards to 10 depending on how big the opponent's creatures are. Disciple of Bolas allows you to sacrifice another creature and you gain X life, draw X cards, where X is the creature's power. This is a triggered sacrifice ability, which allows you to sacrifice one of your creatures, and you're going to be pumping up Kresh to boot. But not only that, you're also gaining life and you're drawing some extra cards alongside with it. Elves of Deep Shadow is another mana dork, allowing you to tap for 1 black, however at the sole cost of damaging you by 1 each time you tap the elves. Fleshbag Marauder is another Demon's Disciple, allowing you to have everybody sacrifice a creature and giving Kresh more power. Foundation Breaker is a new card for Modern Horizons 2 that came out, and the reason we're adding this one is because of its evoke cost. So how evoke costs work with Kresh is that you could play the Foundation Breaker for its evoke cost, and then it'll immediately leave the battlefield. With this, they have an enter the battlefield ability that allows you to destroy a target artifact or enchantment, and if one of those happens to be a creature, you're adding extra power on top of Kresh with the Foundation Breaker's power as well. Findorm Elves is another mana dork that allows you to tap for 1 green mana. Harvester of Souls is some good utility, allowing you to draw a card for each one of your non-token creatures dying. Llanowar Elves is a staple anywhere. You'll see tap 1 to add 1 green mana. Merciless Executioner is another flesh bag ability, allowing you to have everybody sacrifice a creature and giving Kresh more power. Same goes for Plaguecrafter, except with Plaguecrafter, you also get to allow your opponents to sacrifice a Planeswalker as well. Each player that can't do either one of those has to discard a card. This one is probably one of the best, if not the best ability of this kind in the deck itself. Reclamation Sage is another budget staple. As you can tell, this is one of my pet cards that I allow in these decks. Reclamation Sage is just really good to allow you for 3 mana to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Next, we're looking at Scarland Thrynax. With this, you're allowed to sacrifice your creatures from this, allowing you to put +1/+1 counters on the Scarland Thrynax and putting counters on Kresh to boot as well. Shriekmaw is another evoke creature, allowing you to destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. Spite Bellows is the same thing, allowing you to deal 6 damage to any target creature. Bring Bloom Druid allows you to sacrifice a land and put 2 extra lands on the battlefield when it enters the battlefield, so it's acceleration to you at the mere cost of sacrificing 1 of your lands. Viscera is another sacrifice outlet, allowing you to scry 1 for each time you sacrifice a creature. Wood Elves is extra ramp, getting you an extra force on the battlefield. And lastly, Zulaport Cutthroat is another toolbox ability, allowing you to ping your opponents for 1 and you gain life each one of your creatures dying. Next, we're going to look at our instants. For this, we're also running a lot of instants, just as much instants as we do creatures. The reason we are running so many instants is that we want a lot of interaction in this deck, whether it be with our own creatures or our opponent's creatures. We're going to start off with Ancient Animus. You get to put a +1/+1 counter on a target legendary, and it fights a creature an opponent controls. So with Kresh, fighting is also a good way to get more counters on Kresh. That way, whenever he bullies one of your opponent's creatures to death, he gets their power on top of it as well. Artifact Mutation allows you to destroy an artifact and create X/1/1 green sapling creatures based on the converted mana cost, so it's from removal and some token generation on top of it. Beast Within is just a staple out at this point. With this, you get to destroy a permanent, and its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Now, Death Sprout allows you to destroy a creature and search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tap, so it's not only a removal, but it's also ramped for you. Feign Death allows you to basically negate anybody trying to kill Kresh. With this, if they're trying to destroy them, you play this card and he'll come back to the battlefield when he leaves the battlefield. Fling is just a game ender. As you can tell, with Kresh having enough +1/+1 counters, you can just fling him right at your opponents. Golgari Charm is great because it allows you to be multifaceted, either giving all creatures -1/-1 till end of turn, destroying an enchantment, or you regenerate each creature you control. Now, for me, I would probably use this for either the all creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn, or destroy an enchantment, mainly because the -1/-1 can hit any mana dork and give more power to Kresh along the way, and the destroying target enchantment easily is just extra removal value for you. Grab the Reins is an interesting entwine card, allowing you to either steal opponent's creature, or you basically fling a creature at your opponent, or you can do both if you have the mana to do it. Now, I would use this again as a fling ability. However, stealing an opponent's creature and then sacrificing is just also really, really funny. Colony Ambush is another one of the fight cards, basically, but this also is a dual face card, allowing you to flip it over for colony territory whenever you need that extra green. Crossend Grip is a split-second removal spell to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. With the split-second ability, you cannot respond to split-second, and that enchantment or artifact that's pesking you around, it's gone. Malakir Rebirth is another one of the Feign Death, except with this, you lose 2 life, and basically it does not come back onto the battlefield. However, it is another dual-face card that flips over for Malakir Mire for whenever you need an extra black mana. Momentous Fall is a great card, getting you a lot of card draw and some life on top of it too. If you find Kresh is going to get targeted very quickly, or if he's in the midst of getting targeted for removal, you could just use this to sacrifice him and draw a lot of cards and gain a lot of life. Plumb the Forbidden is a great utility card. If someone's going to mass board wipe, with this, Plumb the Forbidden allows you to draw some extra cards on top of a board wipe. That way, it kind of negates your opponents from hitting every single creature you have. Pounce is another fight card, allowing you to fight a creature you don't control. Putrefy destroys an artifact or a creature. Rakdos Charm allows you to either exile all cards from a target player's graveyard, destroy an artifact, or each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. Now, I would use this in any way, since we've seen before it's so useful having you either just exile all cards from a graveyard-centric deck, destroy an artifact that's being pesky to you, or you can end up trying to win the game. If someone's going wide, you could just use it to deal 1 damage to each controller, and you could probably knock out somebody with the last ability. Ram Through is another fight card. As you can tell, we're running a lot of fight cards because Kresh is really good at getting counters on him, so if you can fight a lot of creatures and kill them, it's just better for you. Return to Nature is another multifaceted card, destroying either an artifact, enchantment, or you exile a card from a graveyard. This is a great toolbox. I run this in every single green deck that I put out. As you can tell in the last couple of brews, if you haven't seen this channel before, and it's worked wonders, especially for 2 mana. It allows you to do so much to negate your opponent's abilities and their turns. Solidarity of Heroes is another really good card that I've come across. Basically, you could just use this to double Kresh's power when at any point in time as an instant speed. Terminate just destroys a target creature, and Unnatural Aggression is another fight card, except when the creature goes to the graveyard, it's exiled instead. Alright, so with most of our deck going to instants and creatures, we're going to take a look now at our enchantments. Since we are running a lot of creature removal and a lot of creatures that can die, we also want a lot of token generation too, and some toolbox cards to go along with it. So with this, we're going to start off with Colossal Majesty. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. This is great, especially if you have Kresh at 4 power already, so you can be drawing some extra cards at the beginning of your upkeep. Dreadhorde Invasion allows you to create zombie tokens, and for the most part, if they have power 6 or greater, they gain life on a turn. The second ability is just extra wording that we don't exactly need. We just want those zombie tokens, so that way we can just get more power onto Kresh. Evolutionary Leap is another sacrifice outlet. With this, for 1 green, sacrifice it, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, and you put that card in your hand. So that way, you're sacrificing a creature 1, and you're getting a new creature secondly. Fires of Yavimaya allows you to have all your creatures have haste, and sack it to give somebody +2/+2 until end of turn. From Beyond allows you to create some Scions that actually allow you to add some extra mana on there. We're also using this for Kresh's ability. The second ability is not very much needed. Golgari Germination is actually interesting, allowing you to create 1/1 saplings each time a non-token creature you control dies. Greater Good is a great sacrifice outlet, especially with Kresh on the field, because you get to draw cards equal to the sacrifice creature's power. Tortured Existence is one of the only ways we're able to get our creatures back from the graveyard, allowing you to pitch a creature to get a creature back from your graveyard. And Vampiric Rites allows you to sacrifice a creature for an extra card and an extra life. Next, we're going to look at our sorceries. We're running only 6 of them because a lot of our interaction is instant speed, and we want that instant speed interaction. First off, we're looking at Chain Reaction. We only use this if Kresh is big enough to survive it, or if Kresh is not on the field to completely wipe the board, where we're dealing X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the field. Culling Ritual allows you to destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less and add green or black for each permanent destroyed this way. Really good, especially if you want to get some extra cards on the field during that turn. Cultivate is extra mana, allowing you to search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, and put them onto the battlefield taps, and want the other one into your hand. Deadly Brew is another really interesting one, allowing you to, for each player, sacrifice a creature or planeswalker. If you sacrifice a permanent this way, you can return another permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So this is a great way to get something back from your graveyard and sacrificing other things as well. Overwhelming Stampede is one of our ways to win, allowing the rest of your creatures to get power based on how big Kresh gets immediately. And Rampant Growth is an extra ramp, allowing you to get a basic land from your deck and put into the battlefield tapped. Next, we're looking at our artifacts. We're only running 3 of these, but these three I find are very good in this deck. First, we're looking at Cauldron of Souls. With this, you can choose any number of target creatures. Each one of those gains persist till end of turn. So with Kresh, if you're subject to a board wipe, you can use Cauldron of Souls and he comes back on the field, be it at with a -1/-1 counter on him. Like Grabster's Bestiary allows you to not only scry, but whenever you cast a creature card, you can pay 1 green and draw an extra card. And Mimic Vat allows you to make copies of whatever creature is under the Mimic Vat whenever they go to the graveyard. Next, we're going to look at the 3 Planeswalkers we're running in this deck. Yes, we decided to devote some space for Planeswalkers because these 3 are kind of interesting and kind of good too. First is Domri, Anarch of Bolas, allowing your creatures to get +1/+0. With that, their +1 is add a green or a red, and creature spells you cast with this turn can't be countered, which is really good. And the -2 is a fight ability. So with this, it's +1/+0, adding extra mana with creature spells not being able to be countered, and fighting. It's pretty much in what we want to do in this deck. Next is Garruk, Primal Hunter. With this, you are creating tokens, 3/3 beast tokens for his +1. His -3 is drawing cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. And his ultimate is creating 6/6 green worms for each land you control. So with this, you're either making a lot of tokens or you're drawing a lot of cards. And we're also running Jeska, Thrice Reborn, in this deck. I decided to add Jeska in this deck because having Kresh give triple power is insane, especially in a deck that's going very big with 1 creature. And finally, we're looking at our lands. So these are the fuel to our engine, and we need these cards to make the deck playable. So let's go under the hood and see what we're running. First, we're looking at both Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. These are the best ways to filter our deck and get whatever we need on the field. Same thing with Jund Panorama. This one allows you to get a forest, mountain, or swamp onto the battlefield. Mirrored Landscape is another one that it comes into play tapped, but it gets you 2 basic lands whenever you sacrifice it. Savage Lands is the only tap land that we run in this deck where it actually generates colors. And we are also running 12 forests, 8 mountains, and 10 swamps. And that's how you build a bloodthirsty barbarian whose bloodlust bears no bounds. And with our deck price today, we slapped on a $50 price on Kresh. We included the price of him and excluded all the basic lands in the deck, and that gives us a total today of $54.05. This is very much on the cusp of being over budget. However, we do have that $5 overage leniency, I should say, and so we are in that safety net to where we are almost over budget in this case. So with that, let's take a look at some of the pros, the cons, and some notable out-of-budget upgrades for this deck. So some of the pros and cons to this deck. Let's start with the pros first. The pros are this is a very fast and aggressive deck. Based on my playtests that I've done with this deck, it's very clear that Kresh wants to be a very fast and a very aggressive deck, and so this build is pretty much in line with that. You can get Kresh out as easy as maybe turn 3 with this deck. I've done it before, and you're very susceptible to go very, very wide, especially with all the instant speed cards. It's a very reactionary and quick to respond deck. It runs, like I mentioned to you before, almost the same amount of instants as there are creatures, and with that, most of them are destroying creatures or fighting them, and so that's how we're getting Kresh bigger and bigger. And it's also a very good starting deck for new players, especially players who like big power and want to go wide. This is the introduction I had, and that's pretty much the reason why Jund not only has a piece of my heart in this, but Gruul ultimately is my favorite combination because it's big, it's stompy, and it's aggressive. Now, some of the cons of this is it can get off to a really slow start. It's happened to me multiple times where I get maybe 3 lands in hand and then not be able to play another land until turn 5. A removal hurts the deck a lot, especially if Kresh is big and somebody removes him or exiles him, makes you sacrifice him, anything like that. And the more and more he costs, the less and less likely you are going to win, especially if how the toll that Kresh takes to cast him each time. The other con in this deck is there's not enough draw consistency to get out of ruts. So if you're running with the amount that we have, we did do a decent amount of draw in the deck. However, It's not enough to say if you're completely swamped with lands or if you're completely screwed with creatures, one or the other. You could be in a really tough situation. And our out of budget recommendations for this deck. This deck is mainly built on a $50 budget, but if you want to go above and beyond, here are some good recommendations I would add to this deck. First of which is the Great Henge. With this, not only are you getting some extra card draw on top of casting creatures, but you're actually getting extra ramp too. Xenagos, God of Revels, another amazing card that we can add in this deck if you want to go up and beyond, allowing you to double Kresh's power and swing big. Lilion Dreadhorde General is also extra card draw for whenever your creatures go to the graveyard, and some extra abilities to spice it up a little bit too. We also have Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos, which are the same cards. Basically, whenever you sacrifice a creature, your opponents have to sacrifice one as well. And lastly, Zendikar Resurgent, because it's extra card draw and extra ramp for you to be able to play more stuff. And that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you found enjoyment from this video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it amongst your friends, and hit the bell icon, because not only will that notify you of every future video that comes out of the channel, it'll help me along the way as well, since the algorithm will keep going up and more people will be able to see this and I'll reach more of an audience. With that, like I mentioned to you earlier, you can find me at my socials. They are on the bottom left hand side of your screen right now. You'll see the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, and the TikTok channels. Go to each one of those, follow. I'm very active in most of those, and basically, if you want to pitch a new idea for a deck brew or a discussion video, any of that, those are the places to do it right now. Second to last little bit of business, I post every Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've been doing this mostly through the tail end of the summer, and I found some great success being able to reach most of you today watching this. And with that, I'm going to continue with this upload schedule every Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you won't be able to miss me. And last bit of business, as you haven't known from the beginning of this video, we're running a contest on Instagram. If you want to win an entirely built deck from this channel, which includes the Kresh deck that's featured on today's video, go onto the Instagram page that'll be linked in the show notes down below. Go to the page, like the picture, tag 3 of your friends, and comment your favorite color combination. All 4 of those will give you an entry into the contest. We're drawing on September 13th, and if you don't follow all those steps, you're not going to be entered, unfortunately. And with that, I will bid you adieu. I will be having this great long weekend to celebrate my birthday, and I'll catch you guys next Friday when I actually officially turn 29. So until then, guys, cheers and stay safe.